Yes, welcome everyone. This is once again your host Shailesh, bringing you live amazing topics, amazing people. But today, what an amazing human that we are going to interact with. And we always bring this life journeys of people. They are real people. They are not written books. They are book in their own, and they are live. And so, real humans talking their real experiences with real wisdom that comes in, which helps to everyone that we listen. There's a lot of content that we create about humans, and this is what we are supposed to do in our journey by having and sharing our real experiences so we can make a better life for not just us, but also for the generations to come. And so today I have the pleasure to invite, and what a beautiful she has become, a very in short while, my dearest friend. And I can call her Angela, but it's what resonates with one of the things that she has got in her name tag is Ahimsa. And in India, Ahimsa means non-violence. And that's something that attracted me as well. But she's here to spread the world. But first of all, I want to say about her two lines that she is a creation and a creative director. So she has been a creator of many things, whether you name it food that is important for our survival, whether you name it as our awakening, spiritual awakening, that we need to understand who we are and what are our purpose. Now, through very, and then the energies that she can transform to many, many different levels. So today, she's a creative director, an integrative nutrition chef, and a holistic wellness expert. So we're going to talk to not just an ordinary human. We all are ordinary, but we all do extraordinary. And this is the extraordinary bit that we are going to uncover today from Angela. Angela, welcome to this beautiful episode of today's. We invite you to uncover your life journey. So thank you very much for doing this for us. But let's dive into it. Tell us something about you. What is your journey and how do you see what you are today? So then we can dive deep into it.
Oh, that's like a loaded question. Thank you for having me.
Just introduce
Um,
yourself a little bit. That's all.
okay, well, I mean, you kind of did, but I do a lot of things. I've
Mm.
traveled to a lot of places, which has been the greatest teacher in my life. And I guess I'm an artist. Like I do a lot of things. Every time I've lived in a different country or traveled, I've taken some sort of inspiration from that and like rolled with it. And the beautiful thing about traveling so much and moving to new countries is that you don't have any attachments. And
Mm.
so you can literally be inspired and there's nothing stopping you from becoming whatever it is that you want to become or you want to do or explore. And so, a lot of people, when they get to a certain age or start a profession, they grow in one direction, whereas I've kind of like gone out in all of these different directions, but I consider it all art. So, like, as you mentioned, I'm an integrative nutrition chef.
Absolutely.
But even my approach to food is very artistic. Like I come from an integrative nutrition background, also incorporating Ahimsa, which is, nonviolence and compassion, which is why my stuff is plant-based. But I try to make it also colorful. I actually am branding myself called the Chakra Chef,
Mm.
because my book series, Feed Your Chakras.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not just the food and how we like
Yeah.
nourish our chakras. It's kind of a broader perspective, but of course, there's obviously lots of recipes in there because I'm an amazing chef. But yeah, so I also come at it from an artistic perspective, and you mentioned there's a lot of color and stuff in
Yeah.
everything that I do. I'm a very colorful person, colorful
Yeah.
personality. But that's also part of the art, and so it's like finding that balance and the contrast and I actually created a course, which I didn't mention, it's called Eat the Rainbow. So it's kind of
Mm.
like it's an extension of Feed Your Chakras, but it doesn't have the holistic, like spiritual part to it. It's more just
Yeah.
like the phytonutrients have a certain frequency, and these are the nutritional benefits of it. And a lot of people are like, oh, what do I eat if I can't eat meat and stuff? But really, all you have to do is eat the rainbow because then you get the full spectrum of,
Yeah. That's a
yeah.
good way of
And so
looking at it. Mm,
Yeah, and so food is also like that too. You like think of a plate as like an empty canvas, and
mm.
then it's like, how do I make this beautiful? But like, if this person needs a high protein, so it's kind of like it's an art because you're solving problems. At least that's how I approach it, and it always turns out delicious. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Look at that. All the listeners, you can see she's not just a talking, walking, colorful person, but she's also a very, very multi-dimensional and multi-creation. That's what we make humans so unique. So this
Mhm.
unique human today, Angela, I want to dive now deep into how did you come this far and what was your really thoughts? So let's begin with your life journey when you were just a little one without any conscious things that until you became conscious or whenever you became conscious. But prior to that, what was you as a child? Tell me something about deep down. Who were you as a child? What sort of environment, what sort of background you grew up into, and the mindsets that you had at that time? And how did you manage to change that? Will come to later. But let's begin with your child, just as a child. Angela as a child. Tell me something about you,
Angela as a
whatever you
child.
remember.
Yeah, okay. Well, when I was young, I both my parents worked. My mom was a teacher, and I don't know, I never actually watched television. Like I was never into TV, which
Right.
is
Uh-huh.
is I think a big part of why I am the way that I am today, that and my background in advertising.
Mm,
I kind of broadened my perspective, but I either spent a lot of time with my great aunts or my grandparents
mm.
who survived the war and have a completely different mentality than most people
Yeah.
today.
Hmm.
Or I was at home and our whole basement was full of like school supplies. So I was always creating, like my mom had all these paints and stuff like that. So and my mom actually she didn't really like kids because she was a teacher. It was very weird. So she didn't actually spend a lot of time with me. So I was just like I've always entertained myself and I've always been in a lot of sports and I was
Mm.
in dance and I was in soccer and I'd spend my summer in gymnastics camp or doing the school for the performing arts. And so I've always been kind of
Yeah.
exploring all these different aspects, which is funny because today, like I still do all of these things. Like I'm still very fit. I teach yoga, I dance, I'm even a
Right.
fire dancer, which was inspired by my travels. And I'm an artist, like I'm a multimedia artist. I mentioned I'm a creative director.
Yeah.
Food is an art, dancing is an art. I also do fine arts as well. Like I'm a
Mm.
mixed media
So
artist.
was like who you are as a natural independent mind rather than somebody telling you, hey, Angela, you do well in this, do it that. Was it
Yeah.
like that, or was it like, no, Angela knew what she liked and she wanted to explore, irrespective of whatever that. How
Yeah,
was
no, it was
it?
completely of my own accord. I
All
mean,
right.
yeah, like I wanted I was lucky because like I was put in a lot of things that I wanted to do,
Mm.
just because it kind of got
Yeah.
me out of the house and whatever. I also did like swimming lessons and tennis
Yeah.
lessons and all of those things. So
Okay.
I've always been like very well-rounded in that. And I
Mm.
still am today. People are like,
Mm.
"Oh, how do you do all these things?" I don't do them
Yeah.
all the time, every single
Mm.
day, but I do them
Mm.
and it's kind of like if you continue to do something, then you don't lose it. You know what I mean? So
So do you think that your environment was one of the influencers and also, or you made your environment accordingly to influence yourself? How was your minding?
Um, I don't know, I think
Sometimes people,
I probably created it because
ah,
I like,
that's what I was coming
even
to.
even
Mm.
in school, like I was always like an enrichment student because I was always super creative and they
Right.
recognized that at an early age. And I was very like academically intelligent as well. Not that like my only thing was like I wasn't like the best listener, you know what I mean? Because I'm such a free spirit and I would like
Right.
talk a lot
Mm.
in class or I wasn't like I wasn't like a slave to the system at an early age. But anyways, I got good grades, so they just passed me. But yeah, no, I think I've always just kind of created my own. Like
Great.
if there was something I
Mm.
wanted to do or I didn't like I would just go do it. If I didn't like the way our front lawn would look, I would like try and garden and stuff just because I was very independent, mainly because my mom actually didn't do a lot of stuff and just kind of expected me to do it. So
Ah,
I
yeah.
thought that I could, like I didn't know any other way.
Yeah. So did you had any siblings or were you the child, eldest, or what was your?
I actually do have an older brother.
Mm-hmm.
But we were never really like we didn't have a lot in common.
Mm.
We never were really close. And then we also, oops, I almost dropped my camera. We also didn't live together very long just because after my
Right.
parents split up when I was in grade two,
Mm-hmm.
it became a little problematic. And like both my
Mm.
parents were alcoholics. And my mom
Mm.
was like an undercover one, though. My dad was pretty obvious.
Mm.
And then my brother actually went to go live with other families. So I didn't live with him very long. And then I was like with my mom,
Mm.
um, which became worse because then all the focus was on me, right? And then things got really escalated, and I actually stopped living with her at 14.
So,
So
did you think that was a challenge that influenced you, motivated you to become who you are today as more independent and more kind of creative? Was
oh,
that one of those things?
you mean like the kind of breakdown with my mom or me moving out of the house?
Whatever it is, that challenges that you had along that time, your brother is not with you, but you are there with your mom, and then you have to
Hmm.
do
Oh, that
everything
was
on your
definitely
own.
challenging.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. Actually, like
exactly.
I'm like I would get kicked out of the house a lot when I was when I was in like grade 7 and 8, even before that, but it started getting really bad around that time. And I mean, I wasn't also perfect at that time either because I was like rebelling a little bit and
No.
then things were crazy
Mm.
at home. But because my brother went to the same junior high as I did,
Hmm.
I actually had a guidance counselor who was my brother's guidance counselor, and he would book appointments with me
Mm.
because he knew that my mom was an alcoholic.
Right.
And I think like
Mm.
I look back and I'm like, wow, like that's probably the only reason I actually like passed because I missed so much school in grade 8. And I actually
Mm.
got mono as well, like when I was kicked out of the house and I was like living like across town and so they knew and they didn't want to hold me back because I was like smart. So
Mm.
they passed me, right? And then that summer, I actually both my parents gave me up for like a crown ward, and so I went into foster care. And
Mm.
so it was like everything happened at once. Like I was starting high school, I started foster care, and I was just like kind of like,
Mm.
wow, like how is this happening to me? Like, you
Mm.
know, it
Mm.
was so
Yeah.
surreal. It's kind of funny because like I went into my first foster home, which was actually not a bad experience because at that time it was like the first bit of stability I actually
Yeah.
had. Because at my house, it was like I was walking on eggshells. Like I felt like I was in jail. Like you wouldn't even believe half the stuff that happened. Like my mom would like literally just pick up the phone just to kick me off the phone, you know, like it was like
Right,
she was
right,
more
right, right.
controlling. So
Mm.
it was actually kind of nice to go into foster care and have that little bit of stability.
Mm.
And I had this one foster sister who was like in these gangs. And so I was like her little sister, so nobody messed with me. And it's like I moved out and all of a sudden I had this bodyguard, you know what I mean?
Right,
That like
right, right, right.
scared of. So that was kind of like lucky. And that was going really well for a little bit. And then my dad decided to take me out of foster care. And like with my I like to call her my evil stepmom. She's not my stepmom now, but she was very influential in my like relationship with my dad and not in like a
Mm.
good way. But anyway, so I went live with them and then
Mm.
we had a breakdown, which is why they don't like you just to go out of
Yeah,
care, you know, without
sure.
transitioning properly. And then I went back into care, but then by this point Tabitha was in jail. I didn't mean to say her name, but anyways, my foster sister was in jail and it was a whole new group of foster sisters and they were like stealing from me and it was like not good. And then I went to another place
Mm.
and then I went on the run because I just
Mm.
felt like I was living in jail. We had like this early curfew and I lived with my foster sister's best friend at the time, who is now like, we're literally call ourselves sisters to this day. Like we became sisters during this time.
Mm.
But her grandmother was in the hospital. And so we were receiving like her checks and we lived together and like survived. And like we were like completely like partying and everything for like 6 months straight. And
Mm.
then it was like my higher self intervened one day, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
it was like, Angela, you're better than this. Don't throw your
Yeah.
life away. Okay. And I was like, okay.
Yes.
Cause it's like, I just wanted to live a little because I literally felt like I was in jail. Like, you know, I was like in jail with my mom, in jail in
Yeah,
foster home.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah. I
I
can
just want to
imagine.
live, you know, I'm a
Mm.
teenager. And so I did my living for like 6 months, but I knew because I was always an enrichment student and I knew I had so much potential.
Mm.
So I was like, okay. So I I pretended I
Mm.
got arrested. and I
Right.
turned myself in to the cops. And there I went there and it was like, I went there and they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm here to turn myself. I'm like 14 or no, I was 16 at the time. And I'm like, I'm here to turn myself in. And they're like, why? They're like, oh, I ran on the run. And so, anyways, then they called my social worker.
Mm.
And then I got taken out. I was put into like a women's shelter for 2 days. And she
Right.
asked me, and she's like, why did you do that? And I was like, well, because I felt like I was in jail.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to live a little, but I want to go back to school. So if I have to go to jail, I'll do it over the summer and just go back to school and start my life again. So it was like such a responsible but like honest answer that they're like, okay. So
Mm.
then they actually gave me like a living allowance.
Mm.
And I was like one of the first teenagers to live on my own.
Mm.
And that changed everything because once I had the freedom that I'd always wanted, I was
Mm.
like not gonna lose it. Like there was nothing
Yeah.
I was gonna do to like give that up,
Mm.
right? So I started working on top of whatever living allowance I had, and that's actually my first jobs were in restaurants.
Right, right.
Yeah, I
So
was like
taking,
Angie's salad girl.
yeah, so taking such bold decisions at that point, with all the challenges around you, what do you think that made you what you are today? Like strong as taking independently taking those decisions really made you who you are today? Or you had been one of those like, okay, just listen to someone what they say and then you just go along with it.
Oh, I've never been that person.
Right,
I think a lot of it's because I always had to do things for myself. And so at a
right,
very like I wasn't like babied, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't
right.
spoiled, I wasn't babied. It was like the opposite. Like I had my mom actually got me to do things that I was super shy and uncomfortable. Like I'd have to go to the grocery store at like such a young age. And then
Right.
like living on your own, like I was like the only like person in high school that was like
Mm.
supporting themselves and going to high school and like getting grades. So that was like a shift for me. And then I think it was just having like my social worker, like I actually didn't really even think that, going to university was an option.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
Because I was like, oh, I didn't want to be in debt. And she was like, oh, she actually just said to me, she's like, it'd be really great if we could get you to graduate debt free. And I was like, is that even possible? And I
Yeah.
did graduate debt free. So I actually got bursaries, scholarships. I got
Wow.
like so much stuff. I
Amazing.
got like a full scholarship for like every
Mm.
single year. And then I got like extra things on top of that because like I applied and my circumstances. And then because I was like a Crown Ward, like OSAP gave me the most amount of money. And then I
Mm.
also worked through university. So
Mm.
by the end of like my 4-year term, I
Mm.
had like $40,000 in the bank
Mm. Mm.
or something. No,
Right.
I think it was 50,000. And then when it came time to pay it back, I paid like all $34,000 in like one go because I was like, I'm
Wow.
not paying interest on this. So like I think
Right.
that it was just I was given what I needed and I
Mm.
didn't have somebody like being overprotective. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
having me for me personally, like having somebody that just was like there to support, there to kind of like be a soundboard and
Mm.
empower me, but without telling me like what I can't do because they're emotionally invested or whatever. Like that was the best thing for me. And I think just the fact that like I didn't know any difference, that like I did like I was so used to doing everything for myself, so I just thought I had to,
Mm. Yeah.
you know.
So, I mean, I want to ask you here because normally 70-80% normal teenage or that age when you are on your own or when you have challenges, either they take up a road that has been directed by someone or they take up the road like you, which are quite independent in your own. But then do you think that did you miss anything of those at that age when people do is okay, have friends, go parties or go movies, go enjoy little things. What was your kind of idea around that time as an independent? Was that,
Okay, so I did do things, mind you, I was more responsible than a lot of people.
yeah.
But I don't really because I would actually want to work. Because for me, like not having like money and stuff my entire life, like I wanted to make money.
Mm.
I wanted to make sure that I was gonna be okay, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Sure.
that was like the best time for me to do that. I did have friends. And
Mm.
at one point, I actually had a very toxic best friend, and like
Mm.
she was like a drug addict and all these things. But then like, for a while, like I would kind of like balancing like my crazy life with her, but I would still go to school and I would still go to work and stuff.
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
she would go and do things, and like she got herself into a lot of trouble. Like she got pregnant. She also was hanging out with this young girl, and the little girl like overdosed and died, which was like bad.
Mm. Wow.
And she also like got a credit card, and without a few months she went bankrupt. So that was like, for me, I was like, I never want to go bankrupt. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And so it was kind of, I learned from like her mistakes. But she luckily moved. I was raised in Kitchener, like that's where I grew up, and I moved to Toronto for
Mm.
university. But she moved out of the city while I
Mm.
was in high school still, which was a blessing. And I actually got a boyfriend, and so that kind of grounded me too, you know what I mean? But yeah, I did have a life. I was very balanced, but I knew that like I wanted more than whatever. So that was like, it was like I wasn't thinking
Sure.
about circumstances. I was thinking of like, I'm going here. So
Mm, mm. Wow, wow. Because that's the most challenging part at a young age, because we mature and we change our circumstances according to our years go by or the age that we are into. However, our likes, dislikes keep changing. But that particular age, when you are teenage, when you are university, when you're doing, you want to do stuff, you want to try all the new things that you can in that journey. And for you, like taking those or getting away from those, making that mindset to who you are today is amazing, because people think, oh, I don't want to sacrifice that life, or I don't want to sacrifice the fun. But what is fun to one may not be fun to others.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
again, as you rightly said, that you enjoy doing what you do. That means you are having fun already in whatever you do.
Hmm.
And that's the difference I found in you, Angela, that most people think fun means traditionally by status quo is going to a movie, going to a beach or a party and things like that. And but then they don't see the other side of the fun is what you like, you do, what you
Hmm.
take decisions that you do, and that itself is a fun, but they don't
Yeah.
understand that, I guess. So
Well, I don't work. I do things that I enjoy. Like it's even when you see like
exactly, exactly.
I'm extremely fit, but
Mm.
everyone's like, "Oh, how do you maintain this? Like what do you do? What's your leg day?" I'm like, "Well, I use my legs every day, that's one thing." But I think of it as like playing,
Mm.
like I don't go to the gym to use machines like a machine, because I'm not a machine. I'll go there and I
Mm.
have fun. Like I incorporate all the things that I do to play in a gym and
Right,
stuff.
right, right, right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, all the listeners, as you can see, Angela is trying to give her life journey experiences, and the other side of the coin is what we normally as a human. So, there are listeners who are teenage, there are listeners who are matured enough, but there are listeners who have not done what they should have done, or where they should have taken decisions to understand there is nothing wrong or right in it, but there is something, a pleasing thing that you can do even though you don't follow those traditions. You just have to follow your heart. I think that's the key here. So, Angela, moving on from here, tell me something about your challenges afterwards, that when you got into university, finished your university, whatever you had to do, but then you also spread your wings into so many things now that I see. How did that change of mind came, or what was that really triggered you? Is there anything that specific comes to your mind that triggered you to do yoga, to trigger you to do dancing, to trigger you to do chakras and all of those things that you are doing at the moment? It's amazing. Tell me
Yeah,
something
okay.
about
So
that.
there is something that triggered me. So I went to university,
Mm.
and I went to university to become an art director, creative director in advertising. But in that time, like I was actually, that was my driving force, and I was very creative and stuff too, but I was totally like a type A personality, and like I was very stressed and had to be
Mm.
perfect, and you know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
and then I actually did work in advertising. And that was the first year my body started falling apart, because like I was like in the 9 to 5, and it happened so quickly,
Yeah.
And I actually started like living for the weekends, and I was like going into escapism. And it was like, I kind of, uh, I had like I had like a toxic relationship, and I broke up with him. And during that year, I gave myself my first trip to Thailand by myself.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
that was like my reward for like loving myself enough to like get out of this relationship that like I didn't think I had the strength to do. And
Mm,
it was during that trip that I experienced many like it was like my first spiritual awakening, you know, and many like synchronicities happened and I was just like so blown away by like the magic that's out there when like I wasn't in like the grid of the matrix. I didn't know what the matrix was, but I felt it. You know what I mean? Because when you're in university and you're doing things like it was all about like, oh, you're working on all these like great campaigns and for projects that are great. And then you get out
yeah.
into the real world and you're doing stuff for like pharmaceutical companies
Mm,
or like, you know, all
mm,
these things and you're just trying to hide all the side effects and like, you know, you're creating ads and you're putting your like life force into something that people hate and don't want to see and you don't
mm.
like nobody knows who created it. So it's like so unrewarding. And then just the lifestyle of it and stuff. So when I was on this route or like in Thailand and experiencing all these miracles, I came back and I was like, wow, like I can't do this. You know, I don't know what this is, but I can't do it. So I was like, okay,
Right.
I kind of just put out to the universe that I wanted to move to Europe, you know,
Mhm.
like I didn't like write it down or anything, but it's like literally within a few days, one of my best friends from university who was living in Northern Ireland, with the guy that she was engaged to, she's like, what if we could be together again? And I responded, I was like, woohoo! Like I was just so like blown away that the universe was that responsive that quickly, right? And so
Mm,
like within like a month, I literally packed, quit my job, packed up, moved to Northern Ireland,
mm.
and the Matrix existed there too, but it was
Wow.
worse. You know what I mean? It was
Wow.
like I'd
Yeah,
gone
yeah,
back
yeah.
in time.
Mm,
And so I lasted there for about 9 months. It was a good experience because I you know learned how to be a copywriter in English in another dialect. Like
mhm,
English, like it was actually harder because it's like A, I didn't even understand the English there. And I was like it's my native tongue, you know, like
mm.
I couldn't even understand what people were saying to me. So I was like pretending I was Northern Irish, you know, writing it's good crack it is. Like it was just so funny, but it was a good experience. But they were so like stuck on like the war between Ireland and Northern Ireland and like, you know, and I couldn't get over that. And I was like, okay, this is not the place. So one day I decided I actually knew I already wanted to like travel. So I got a second job working at the Canadian Rockies bar. It was owned by a
Right.
Canadian. So basically I got
Okay.
hired because Canadian. And
Mm.
one night I was walking home and people threw a brick at me because that's what
Wow.
they do. Like it's normal. And I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like who throws bricks? And so that was my sign. I'm like, I got to get out of this place. And so I quit my job and then I decided I was going to travel Europe. And so I did 13 countries through Europe, like took the
Wow.
train. I flew a few places and stuff, but it was like
Mm,
the best thing I'd ever done for myself up until that point, right? But that was also like part of my spiritual awakening because I was like
mm.
just traveling. Sometimes I didn't have a phone, like nobody knew where the hell I was in the world. And I was like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
happened today. And no, it was so liberating. And then I came back to Canada, got offered my ad job back, and I said no, because I just knew that was not for me. And that's when I started like my own, I started
Mm,
like bartending during the day so I could like meet business people in like Yorkville and Toronto. And I started
mhm.
like gaining clients and stuff that way. And then that lasted about a year. And then I was like, okay, I got to get out of this place again. So then I went to Latin America and then I started traveling there and I was in like Costa Rica, Panama, Argentina. And then I went back home. And then it was kind of like I just kind of kept doing that. But every time, like going to Argentina, I started learning Spanish and I started getting into dance. And sometimes I would actually just do these things because I didn't know anybody. And it was like the only way I could meet people or like do
Mm,
things because
mm.
otherwise I was by myself, which I like being by myself. But I mean, I'm by myself a lot if you're traveling alone, right? So it was good. And then, yeah, like traveling, I got exposed to things like in Thailand. I got
Correct.
exposed to fire dancing, and I'm like, one day I'm gonna do that. And it didn't happen for a few years, but now I'm a fire dancer. So
So tell
yeah.
me, this is amazing what you have been telling me now and what listeners are listening about your journey, about your not just like traveling on your own, but changing your mind. Like many people would be so anxious or anxiety will creep in if they don't have these kind of thoughts. Like, okay, I want to go to Europe. I want to go to this. I want to experience this, but I don't have anything, but I know I want to do it. And yet you do it. And yet you are so much like in your mind set that don't you think your emotional well-being at that time that how did you manage that to change those decisions and transform yourself into a mind that you can accept anything uncertainty and still be who you are and still manage that. It's very hard for many people to even jump or even think. Forget about diving into uncertain area. They don't even can't think. They don't even want to think the
Yeah.
uncertainty. How was
Yeah,
your
you know, a lot
like
of people say that, or a lot of
awakening?
people are like, "Oh, it's so dangerous traveling as a
Correct,
girl by yourself," right?
correct.
And I mean, this was like a while ago, but at the same time, like it was really beautiful because I mean, there were some times I got myself into weird situations. Like I remember one time I was in Spain and I was drunk and I was on the subway and I felt like, you learn to trust your intuition
Mm, mm,
because you don't have anything that's
mm,
familiar to you to gauge off of. So it's all energy, it's all like frequency, it's all like how these people make you feel, or like you walk into, that's the only thing you have to guide you. And so I remember one time I was drunk on a thing and some guy was bothering me and I got really freaked out. And so I just got off the subway really quick so I could get away from him and I left my phone and I was like, okay, well, at least I'm safe. You know what I mean?
mm.
And I had to take accountability because who can you blame for
Yeah,
doing all that? It's just myself, right? But
yeah.
I learned to trust my intuition. I mean, I was always
Yeah,
kind of intuitive,
trusting.
but like I learned to trust it more. And
Mm,
I also realized that when things happen to me on that trip or any of my trips, it's like I was the one who put myself in that situation.
wow.
Right. And then a lot of the times, more often than not, like, everyone's like, oh, like, for example, I went to Bahia, and that's a very poor part of Brazil. It's very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was walking down the street and money flew out of my purse. And these little kids who probably didn't have any money saw
Mm-hmm.
me, picked up the money, and gave it back to me. And that's happened to me in like other parts of the world. And like, when I was in places, like I was on a train in Serbia and these
Mm-hmm.
men who were conducting the train or whatever, they made sure I was in a little thing by myself because I had an evening train. And
Yeah.
then like some guy came over and he was drinking and like trying to chat with me, and then they came and they kicked him out. So it's like I learned that like people are like people, there's good people out there, or
Yeah.
like I would leave my
Correct.
camera somewhere and people would find it, or like I've experienced a lot of really crazy stories, but that would take like a whole other episode. But in so many of them, it's like strangers are there to help you, and so,
Mm.
and also because like, growing up where it wasn't safe at home, but it was like neighbors or strangers and stuff that were the ones to help me. Like that definitely shaped my perspective of like interactions with people,
Right.
so we're all our own worst enemies. And I feel like if you're a good person, like I feel
Mm.
like that karma, like that dharma protects you, because it's like
Mm.
I have good things happen to me all the time. And like, like in
That's a
places
great
I never
wisdom.
expect.
That's a great statement of wisdom that
Yeah.
you that came out of it, you, Angela. So tell
Yeah.
me something about to all the listeners who are listening after this, listening to you. I mean, I want to know, and what's your message to the listeners who are listening that to embrace a journey, because our life journey, everyone's life journey, and everyone is in that same boat of uncertainty, unknown territory. But it's the choices that we have been asked to make from those uncertainties. And how do you boldly accept, how boldly you feel, become fearless? Because 90% people are fearful of many things, whereas
Hmm.
you chose at a very age, chose to be fearless by
I don't know
embracing
if I
and
chose.
accepting.
I feel like I just had to do it.
You just had to do
But
it.
it is
Okay,
it is
maybe
a
you were
choice
by
because I mean there
default a
are there always
compare.
are more fears. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I not to say that I am fearless because at
Mm.
that point in my time I was a lot very fearless, but I mean there's other types of fears. So just because I'm
Of
like not
course.
fearless
Of
in
course, of
some
course.
aspects,
Of
that's what
course.
I learned. But I had a lot of other fears because like I didn't feel seen from my parents, so that created subconscious fears in other ways.
Mm.
Um, but one thing that I could recommend to people too is like to is it intuition or is
Mm.
it fear,
Yeah.
right? And so if it's intuition, it's usually like a gentle nudge,
Mm.
or it's a like a gut feeling where you're like, oh my God, like, and it's very like alert and like you're like, okay, this feels off, like it's
Mm.
energetic, right?
Mm.
Whereas if it's a fear, it's more like voices and doubts and like limiting
Yeah.
belief. And then that is like you have to kind of just like sit with whatever it is that you're feeling or processing and acknowledge it, because then when you acknowledge it, you can like see where it's coming from. And then if it is a fear, you can be like, okay, so what if this does happen?
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because normally it's just this fear or something, but it's like, even if that is true,
mm.
what's the worst that can happen?
True.
You know what I
True.
mean? Because sometimes often not doing something, for whatever fear, like, okay, say for example, you don't do something because you're afraid you're going to look like an idiot. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
mm,
But then if
mm.
you don't do it, like you're never going to know and you're going to miss that opportunity possibly forever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
But then how important is that mindset for all the listeners to understand from your own experiences? How important is it what you just now said that, if you don't do it, you will never be able to experience it. But how important is that thought?
I think
Yeah.
I think it's important. Like, I am sometimes it's like we're so worried about doing things. Like if
Correct.
I had never, like if I went to Thailand and
Mm,
I was worried because I never really performed in front of anybody. Like I knew I wanted to fire dance and I saw it. And then, I went back to Canada like years later. I was a hula hooper. I did a fire,
yep.
I did like a fire kind of like training, like workshop, and I bought the fire tools, but I never used them. So I was like, when I went to Thailand, I'm like, that was my goal. And
Mm,
I didn't know anybody. And I was like, oh my God, like, like what if they don't let me? And it was like a full moon. And I told you I do these numerology things, but it was just, I felt like the energies were aligned. And I'm like, who
mm.
cares? Like nobody knows me. They're not going
Yeah.
to recognize me. They're like, even if they don't like it, like they'll never see me again. So
Mm,
it's like, what
mm.
is the cost of not doing it because of the fear? Like, is that greater than like, some judgment from some people you're never going to see again?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
worried about what
Yeah.
your friends think. Are they really your friends?
Mm, mm,
Like, are
mm.
those the people that you want in your life if they're not going to support you for like exploring something new or some other aspect of yourself that you feel needs to be expressed? Because if
Yeah.
that's true, then they're not really your friends. Like you need new friends
So
because friends are
true.
supportive.
So true. So
So
true.
feel the fear and do it anyway. This is how we
Love that
grow.
message. Yeah. No, that's beautiful what you said. Yeah, feel the fear. Absolutely. And I think this is where we want to make a lot of things aware that life is not about completing one or two or three things, but it's all about how you manage your journey every single moment. It's not made up of 1 year or 2 year or 6 months or 1 month, but it's a full made up moments. And every moment is a challenging moment. But
Mhm.
that challenging moment, if you want to make it more challenging, as you did with like committing yourself and creating that intuition for yourself, but also not fearing about what others would say or what others would mean to you when you do something out of like just like you're a girl, why are you doing this as a girl? So there are a lot of taboos in the society, there are a lot of community restrictions in the society, but you went what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's important as a human journey. And this is what is all about life journey that we all have and that we all create. And I think creation is one of the important aspects that people have missed. How do you see creating a life versus following someone's life? What's your thought on it for our listeners to understand that when you create your own and when you follow someone's life?
Well, I feel that when you create your own, like you're driven by passion and you're driven by the things that make you feel good, which actually raise your vibration and then you manifest things more easily. When I was not living in alignment with my truth, when I was working in advertising, I
Mm,
literally started seeing symptoms. I started gaining weight. My body started falling apart. Like I started like trying to escape,
mm,
and like I wasn't satisfied. And so
mm,
um now like I do everything that I do brings me joy, and like when I'm in flow, like I'm working on my book and like I love to have alone time because I can just get so much done and like I don't even really need to eat because I'm like being like nourished by like this like excitement. And that's like children. Like children aren't like doing, they're just being, right? And like you can try and like get children to come in, you're like, come in for dinner. They don't care. They're having fun. They want to play, and like when you're in that state, that is when the body heals. It's when it thrives. It's when like you can attract more beautiful opportunities into your life. And so
yeah.
if you're not feeling fulfilled, then
Mm,
something's out of alignment. But a
mm.
lot of people don't ever like really reflect that because they're so busy um
Correct.
doing things because of like societal structures, like eating, for
Correct.
example. I don't eat because it's morning. I'm not like, oh, it's breakfast time, I gotta eat.
Mm,
Oh, it's lunchtime, I gotta eat again. Oh, it's
mm,
dinner time, I gotta eat this, and I gotta eat, nothing but proteins and cut the carbs and stuff, because you're being told all of these things and you're
mm.
not actually listening to your body.
So
Like
true.
yeah, and like learning how to do things and intuitively, like once you stop like relying on these like external structures
Mm, mm,
to that govern like how you live your life. Like we don't even
mm.
realize that we like buy all these face products because we think that it's going to make us younger and beautiful, because we're told by people who create these
Yeah,
ads there's something wrong
correct.
with us. But all these products have things that destroy your skin,
Yes,
and
yes,
so
I
it's just
agree.
like, and it's like, this is why I think conscious consumption is so important, and that like like it
Mm,
extends to everything we consume. Like toilet paper is toxic,
mm,
you know what I
mm,
mean? And
mm.
it's just like we live in a toxic world, and we just do things and we're just very unconscious because everything's just sold to us because we're, consumers, right?
So
And
true.
or like we
So
just
true.
follow the rules. We're like eating at
Mm,
this time because that's when the lunch break is and stuff. But like for me, like I eat very intuitively. When I'm doing like my book, for example, and I'm not getting up, I'm not getting a lot of exercise, I don't need to eat as much. A,
mm.
because they're not like extending energy. I'm being like provided inspiration, which is like nourishing me, so I eat
So
less.
true.
But then
So
if I
true.
eat more, and
Mm,
I'm not getting exercise, well, I don't burn it off. So I fast. It's not like I'm like, oh, I fast. I need to fast for 13 hours because blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
Like I fast until my body's like, okay, you're hungry. And then I eat to the point where I'm not hungry anymore. I don't eat till I'm stuffed, right? So I've really like had to unlearn the
Mm,
stuff. And
mm,
like I feel so much better. Like I'm aging backwards now. I have more energy. I actually think that I'm in better I wouldn't say better shape right now, because it's like now I'm just working on my book and whatever. But once the spring comes, Canada in winter is very hard. You don't go out much. But when spring comes and I'm like biking or doing stuff, or I'm like, going outside, like yesterday I went for a walk, like I'm in amazing shape, but I don't even try to do that,
mm,
like it's me having fun. Like my cardio is through the roof, imagining dancing and doing like, headstands with a fire hula hoop around your toe, like that's pretty exerting,
This is
but I don't
beautiful.
even realize it because I'm having fun and I'm dancing and I love it. So,
Mm,
um, I
mm,
just feel that like if you're doing things right and creating your life, like
mm.
everything you do is nourishing you, and you don't have
Absolutely.
to try
Absolutely.
so hard. When you're out of alignment, we'll just call it
Mm,
that, because
mm,
it's like these external things that like have no consideration of your bio individual needs,
mm,
like your
mm.
body needs things that my body doesn't need. You might thrive off of something that like maybe music is better for you to work, whereas working
Correct.
silent. But knowing who you are and like honoring that,
Mm,
honoring your feelings, honoring like,
mm.
expressing your needs and stuff, like when you can do that, then you actually have control of your life. You have control of your emotions. And I just feel like, maybe not everybody's as passionate as me, but maybe they could be if they were living a little more in
But this
alignment.
is
So
but this is the beauty. I think you have touched on so many things in the layers just now. I think we need to do a different topic on the whole holistic approach of food,
mhm.
holistic approach of diet, holistic approach of awareness,
Yes.
self-awareness
Well, this
of
a lot of
self.
this is in my book, my book
Yeah.
series. So
So I
yeah.
think we will definitely come to that to all the listeners. But here is for the listeners on behalf of you and myself. I want to ask this, and I'm very much excited to ask the final question. We are just coming to the end of this episode. I don't want to end, but hey, we have limits time. But I want to end before that. I want to ask you this, Angela.
Mhm,
You gave yourself this beautiful journey that you told us in terms of the what people must be also worried about. Okay, one is you look after yourself. That's part you have explained quite nicely in your own journey. However, what about the when you let go relations with your mom, with your dad, with your brother, with your partner, whoever? How important it is compared versus with your own kind of relationship? I want to ask this question to you because people have forgotten, in my words, that we also have relation prior to everyone. We have a relation with ourselves, and I
mhm,
want you to explain in your own way, how do you see relationship letting go, irrespective of whoever they are?
mhm. It's a good question.
Hmm.
Okay, so like, our relationships to ourselves are actually the most important, but we learn like so
Yeah,
often
because.
people
Mm.
learn to prioritize other people in their lives, right? And I
Yes,
mean,
correct,
like parents and stuff, like, you kind of have to because that's your responsibility, but then they
correct,
completely forget
correct.
their own needs. And then that stems into a lot of like different diseases or sicknesses or whatever from just even like having an emotional imbalance, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Um, but for me, like I haven't had any kids or anything yet, so it's always been kind of me going for me. But when I came back, like I actually because I was like, not super close to my family, like I have a lot of soul family
Mm.
that
Correct,
treat me better, respect me better, you know what I
correct.
mean? Like they're like, everyone says like blood's thicker than water, but it's not
Yeah,
necessarily true,
not,
right? Because if that
no.
blood has all these
That's just a
preconceived
saying.
ideas or like generational traumas and beliefs that they're imposing on you, it's actually limiting your growth. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So it's like, and so many people like never really leave the nest. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
most people
true,
live and
very true,
die within 50 kilometers of where they're born,
very
and
true.
they don't get to be free and explore who they truly are. And I feel like that should be mandatory because that was like the biggest thing for my growth, right? But then
Right.
all that growth that I did, I came back and actually was like exposed to my family again, and it actually really like hindered me, and like all of that like projection and stuff came back onto me. And my mom, who really wasn't a very nice person in my life and was very controlling, obviously I still loved her.
Mm.
And the reason I actually moved back to Canada when I was living in Latin America is because she passed away.
Mm.
And when she passed away, it was a very profound, life-changing, another spiritual awakening. I mentioned this to you the
Yes,
other day. I had
yes.
like my out-of-body experience, but I brought her out of a coma with like this intention that I
Mm.
had, and I'd never done anything like this. And I saw us from this like overhead view, and I knew that God was giving me this opportunity to bring
Yeah,
her
yeah,
peace, which
yeah.
tell her what she needed to hear and like make peace between us.
Mm.
And then actually like a year later, I did like a ayahuasca ceremony, and it really revolved around her. And in that, I healed it was a 10-day ceremony, like a 10-day retreat, and I forgave her. And I actually had like cut my dad off. Like we had a very rocky relationship because my former stepmother and like, whatever.
Mhm.
And he actually messaged me shortly after, and I welcomed him back into my life. Like he left her, and like he had met my new stepmom, and all this stuff happened.
Mm.
And it was really important for me to like heal that. And now it's like, a lot has happened since my mother's passing. And it's so important for us to learn the art of forgiveness,
Mm.
because it's in my forgiving. Like I mentioned this, and I would never have thought this like 10
Mm.
years ago, that my mother would become my guardian angel. And it
Mm.
didn't happen right away. It happened many years later after I'd done a lot of my own healing and stuff. But like, and it started coming through other people that like I wasn't going to, like, they would come to me. Like it was
Yeah,
bizarre.
yeah.
Then it just started happening all the time. And I'm like, wow, she's here to guide me. And I feel like I've done so much work. Like she's not, like I'm sure she's around, but she's not as
Mm.
present as she was. But I've also grown and changed a lot. But
Sure,
that
sure.
was that was
Mm.
very important for me. But the healing came because I forgave. Like my mom had such an impact on my life, and like she projected onto me so many things, and like, it wasn't fair. But she's also only human. And so
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
taking her pain and like putting it onto me, and like whatever her own issues were, they were her own issues, but she's only human.
Mm.
And everybody's just doing the best with what they have. And I also recognize
Absolutely.
she isn't as healed as me. She isn't as like spiritual, or she hasn't done the work. And so it's really important, even if you're the only person in your bloodline, when you do the work, like you are healing generational trauma, because like 20 years gets passed down onto you just from your parents of their stuff, right? So it's really important that we start to recognize this and say, like, is this weight mine to carry? Like, whose burden is this? Like, why am I
Yeah.
having all this resentment or hate towards this person? Because so often it's not even our own, and then we're like carrying it, and that, we feel we have to do this thing, we feel this pressure to be somebody we're not, to please
Not,
them, right? And it's
yeah.
like, that's like doing a disservice to yourself, because you're
Mm.
never going to be enough. You're never going to be somebody
Absolutely.
else's expectation, but you have to only worry about what it is that you're doing for you.
Mm. Absolutely. That's very well said. Thank you so much. This was amazing. As listeners, you can see that Angela, she is not just an artistic or a creative, but also the energy that that she does. So Angela blends the arts, energy, work, and the vibrant healing food to help others feed their bodies, minds, and soul. So it is all about mind, body, and soul that we always keep often talk, and that's about for of your own mind, body, and soul. So
Mhm.
she's now creating of the Feed Your Chakra series, a growing collection of books. So we will wait for that and the video content.
First
This
one's
is
in June.
but that's the wisdom that we she has brought to us today with this enlightenment of her episode of her life journey. And I
Mhm.
think we wish and all of the listeners that you can create your own life journey and you can indulge into many aspects of your talent and skills that you haven't uncovered yet. And unless you take that bold step of going on your own, knowing the unknown, yet embracing the unknown and getting into the unknown territory, you won't experience what Angela has experienced. And there is nothing right or wrong or good or bad, but it's all about how you make your own journey. So I think this is amazing, Angela. Thank you. Thank you so much for this beautiful
Thank
conversation
you
I
for
had with
having
you. And I'm
me.
definitely interested to get back into your food energy healing process as well. That how does it heal the food and the
Mhm.
diet and the process that we would be uncovering very soon in our next episode. But until then, thank you so much, Angela, and all the listeners. Please do write to us if you need any question to be asked. Angela is always here to give you that feedback. And also, if you need anything, some guidance or something, another topic that from her journey that you would like to understand, please write to us. But until then, Angela, your final words to the audience.
If you made it this far, thank you for listening. And it was an honor and a pleasure to share this information with you. And look for Feed Your Chakras, which the first one, focusing on the root, which is our foundation, will be released June 2025.
Right. With that note, I end this episode and we will come back soon. Thank you, Angela, once again. And thank you, all of you, for listening to us. Thank you very much.